Welcome to my first video on how damage is calculated in Raid. In this guide, we'll focus on direct damage and how it is calculated. First of all, let's see how an attack works. This attack hits a single enemy 3 times. The damage of attack is based on my champion's attack stat. Not all damage is based on attack value, so it's important to check before building a champion. Every attack has a damage multiplier. In the game, multipliers are not visible, but you can check each individual multiplier on various websites dedicated to Raid. The higher the base stat and the damage multiplier are, the stronger the champion will hit. Such champions are known as nukers or damage dealers. Now, let's see how damage is calculated. We start with the total attack value and multiply it by the skill multiplier. This gives us the base damage, also known as raw damage. The damage is then mitigated based on the enemy's defense. Damage reduction is calculated using this specific formula. What's important to know is that if defense is equal to 0, there will be no damage reduction. The higher the defense, the closer it gets to the max damage reduction cap of 85%. In this case, the champion's defense of 1473 reduces the incoming damage by 53.2%. If we apply this reduction to the base damage, we get 1690. Now it's time to see the skill in action. Okay, let's pause for a moment. As you can see, only the second value matches the calculated one. The game has multiple types of damage and applies a random variation to the main damage, typically ranging between plus 10% and minus 10%. In this example, the second value was reduced by an additional 8%. This is a classic example of RNG in the game, ensuring that battles are not exactly the same every time. Now, let's examine the different types of damage, starting with the critical hits. Every champion has a critical rate and a critical damage multiplier. By adding the 0.75 multiplier to the previous formula and applying the random variation, we can also recalculate this value. Let's see what happens when attacking an enemy with a negative affinity. First, let's focus on the normal hit. If we look at the possible variation values, you'll notice that none of them match the value calculated in Raid. This is because the damage is always reduced by 20% when attacking against a negative affinity. Similar to crit rate, the game has a weak hit chance that applies only against the negative affinity. A weak hit causes an additional 30% damage reduction. As for critical damage, keep in mind that the game still applies the 20% reduction against the negative affinity. Let's look at another type of attack. This is an AoE attack, and its damage is based on my champion's defense this time. Let's analyze the result. First, we can see that each individual hit is calculated separately to determine which type of hit it is. Then, we can see that the random damage variation is also calculated separately. The two targets, for example these two robar, have exactly the same defense. Let's take a closer look at what happens when attacking with a positive affinity. First, we notice that both enemies have a decreased defense debuff in this example. Therefore, we must reduce their defense before even starting performing the calculation. After calculating the damage mitigation, taking into account the enemy's defense, my champion's multiplier, and applying the in-game random variation, we can verify the damage. Notice that in the case of positive affinity, there is no symmetrical damage increase compared to the damage reduction from negative affinity. A strong hit increases the damage by 30% based on their standard damage. There would be so much more to say about how damage is calculated, but we'll stop here for today. If you would like a more in-depth video, let me know in the comments below. Thank you and have a great day.